Vampire!
I'm out of here!
Oh, landmines.
Hey folks! Today I'll cover a somewhat cool game from 2002 called Bloodrayne, developed by Terminal Reality that previously created the other cult classic Nocturne, which I haven't played yet, but I swear it's on my to-play list. Bloodrayne is a kind of interesting game that mixes horror, brutal action, Nazis, yes, a cool amount of twisted stuff indeed, and it's janky as fuck. The story takes place in our world, just a different reality, where our protagonist, this sexy half-vampire in latex named Rayne, is noted and hired by the mysterious Brimstone Society after seeing her dealing brutally against a couple of vampires in disguise, while she is looking for her father, for whom she feels a huge grudge. So, Rayne is hired as an agent of this association that deals in the shadows with supernatural threats against humanity, and then will control her during her first task. The first playable part of the game takes place in this swampish town in Louisiana named Morton, where a terrible plague is transforming the residents in this sort of malformed zombies. Here Rayne, escorted by her mentor Means, must investigate the cause and purge the infection by eliminating the disfigured people and save the few survivors. I'll tell you frankly, this opening section of the game kinda sucks, and reminds me of another Swampolesque beginning of another famous game. Well, the best will come later, and for now we'll just learn the basic gameplay features, and Bloodrayne's gameplay is pretty simple. It mixes blunt shooting, stiff melee, basic platforming and the usage of the protagonist's vampiric powers. The signature weapons of Rayne are these blades with which she performs a singular attack combo initially composed of 2 moves that will become 5 later on. And yes, it's just about pressing the attack button continuously and she performs everything by herself without the possibility to lock on the targets. I've always found this design choice quite delusional and limited, though seeing the limbs being cut off and enemies screaming pain can be sadistically pleasant. And when this bar here is full, we can activate the Rage mode, during which Rayne will enter in a state that makes her activate a sort of bullet time and execute special melee attacks causing tremendous damages. And just like the normal attacks, it's a single combo that is expanded throughout the story. And there's also this death blow that consumes a third of Rage bar, but I used it just 2 times in the entire game. The gunfights instead are a bit peculiar, because Rayne picks up weapons from the ground and equips one for each hand, and there's no reloading. When bullets run out, she just drops it and passes to the next. We'll see her shooting with a pistol and a SMG simultaneously, sometimes aiming 2 different enemies at once. It's not a bad idea, it seems even cool. There are selectable explosives which are a bit slow to launch, and a heavy weapon that she uses with both hands, and it's better to keep it for special enemies. And overly, firearms are deadly and the gunplay is almost decent, but they are not abundant and sometimes it's better just run past groups of enemies instead of fighting them. As I said, the game features also a bit of platforming. Rayne jumps very high, and if she leaps on cables she will just attach on them like on a trail and never falls unless we jump again. And by pressing the jump button 2 times, she performs a special kick that destroys cracked walls, which is necessary to progress in many levels. Now, Morton is quite a humid place and vampires hate water. It's really deadly for them, but Rayne can resist for a bit being immersed. That said, water is an hazard to avoid and here there's plenty of it, and when health is too low, there's only one thing to do. Feeding. Rayne is a vampire which doesn't suffer from frenziness, but sucking dry her enemies is vital to restore health, but also to dispose of them faster. Interestingly, we can use her victims as human shields and fire with the armed hand. It's kinda cool, and means we'll also gift Rayne with an harpoon useful for catching enemies from afar and bringing them closer to consume them. And aside from feeding, Rayne counts on other vampiric powers. At the beginning she can only use the Aura Vision, which highlights the next objective to achieve. That can be an enemy, an interactable object or just an area, It's perhaps one of the first games to feature such a mechanic, and many times it helped me to navigate some intricate levels. Well, the investigation at Morton at some point it ends with an interesting twist, and then the good part finally begins. It's time to suck off Nazis. Here the game finally shows its selling point, and sets us on the hunt for generals and other important members of the G.G.G, a Nazi faction interested in supernatural powers. And now Rayne can also use a new power called the Dilated Perception, that is practically an infinite bullet time where she can easily avoid bullets, sneak around enemies and take them from behind. And the new enemies are at most cannon fodders useful to refill the health bar, and there are elite soldiers that can block frontal melee attacks. Still, never underestimate these base troops, because being caught in the crossfire is quite deadly and many of them will be armed with fucking rocket launchers. Also, the level design becomes more interesting, with bigger environments with a lot of verticality and usually labyrinthine, and can contain basic puzzles like the need to find a battery to power up an elevator, destroy a cracked wall to proceed further, or find and place explosives to destroy certain things. So, the new mission of Rayne is to find and kill important Nazis, which are divided in small fries easily killable by biting their necks or with a shotgun blast in their face, and more dangerous bosses with proper characterization and powers. The first example is the high priest who shoots from a mobile altar with a Gatling gun and must be attacked from behind using the bullet time. And later there's this sadistic bitch who sacrifices people to feed monstrosities called Damites for her pleasure.
The natives call them Damites.
No, please, Doctor, not me! No!
First they squeeze their soft bodies into...
And during the battle, she transforms the floor in a trapdoor that leads to immediate death. Oh yes, the Damites, sort of parasites that take control of bodies and are quite the hassle. And guess what? Rayne will have to destroy where they came from between hunting one general and another. With this mix of Nazi hunting and crazy horror stuff, Bloodrayne becomes pretty entertaining and compensates the janky gameplay. Rayne has a rather cold humor and the interactions with the targets are often quite delirious. Also because the voice acting of her now famous voice actress feels sometimes, I don't know, emotionless, because perhaps at the time she was still a beginner and the overall voice acting of the game seems very caricatured and blunt to me.
Thanks for dragging me out here. I just love the water.
You're only half a vampire. A dip might hurt, but it won't kill you.
Sort of sticking a finger in my eye doesn't mean I have to do it.
What's wrong with you? Kill her! Kill her, goddammit!
Very attractive.
I'll wear you like lederhosen.
Whatever you are, you just said the wrong words. I'll talk slower. Read my lips. You're dead. Any last words?
As with everything else, we share each other's pain.
One of us is unaffected, while the other suffers.
So, you punch yourself when you're mad at your brother?
And as the game continues, there are further curious twists and battles against new enemies such as jetpack soldiers, and even a section on mechs that leaves me amazed by the perfectly rendered sense of heaviness, slowness and power of these machines. However, it lasts very little, but damn, it was very cool. The last third of Bloodrayne is not bad, it still has some character and distinct bosses, and the last battle is kinda tricky, because one of the two final bosses has a strange hitbox, and the best way to deal with it is the use of the third power acquired at the end of the second act. The extruded view that permits to snipe by standing still, but I used it just a couple of times. At normal difficulty the game is enough challenging, and many times the best thing to do is to get past most of the enemies to the end of the level. And some bosses can seem difficult, but the rage mode is freaking overpowered and kills them too easily. Still, the saving system can be unnerving because the game saves only at the start of the level and some checkpoints would have been helpful, at least after eliminating one of the targets. One thing I appreciated of this game is the soundtrack that contains various good dark ambience pieces that emphasize some twisted parts of the game and other industrial tracks that are pretty dope. The game lasts about almost 6 hours. It has been quite a fun ride like the first time I played it almost 20 years ago. The overall gameplay wasn't nothing exceptional even back then, it feels clunky and limited, but the graphic compartment, it was quite good for its time, though some animations are not exactly fluid, but I appreciated the size of some levels, especially those set outdoors. The version I played for this review is the Terminal Cut, that is almost identical to the original. It has just some better textures here and there, like for water, and the support for higher resolutions. Summing up the whole experience, the first part in Louisiana makes a terrible impression, but when the Nazi hunt begins in Argentina and continues in Germany, it's a good leap forward. To conclude, replaying Bloodrayne wasn't a terrible choice. It's a fine game with good moments. Should you play it, you ask? Well, don't consider it an urgent task, but also not a bad waste of time just to try it at a good discount. As always, a warm thanks to all viewers, and see you in the next entry.